Good evening and welcome to the EVs and Beyond weekly, was semi-weekly at the moment, live stream. Sorry, it's been a couple of weeks away. We had a few things going on. We actually ran a conference for car dealers of all things, which did include some spruiking of electric vehicles and electric vehicle technology to that. And last week I simply had a toddler with a really snotty nose, and she was a bit grumpy to be able to get away for too long, but that's okay. We are back and we have some really cool stuff for tonight, particularly for those of you with an interest in BYD. So if you've got some friends from the BYD Owners Club, jump on Messenger, tell them to run along, because we've got some pretty cool little tidbits later on that we can show you. Now, a couple of little things that have been going around the place today. If after this you jump over to the EVs and Beyond YouTube channel, which I'm sure all of you regular viewers are subscribers to, you'll see a video review for the Mercedes-Benz EQB, which of course launched I think about a month and a half ago now. It is one of the very rare 7-seat options in the EV market, though as we go into that video, the 7-seat under only some very specific conditions, and the car that a lot of people probably want doesn't actually have 7 seats, so that's a little bit unusual, but still a cool car nonetheless. A really cool video hosted by our writer Matthew Hansen, our New Zealander Matthew Hansen. So yeah, pop over after you finish watching this and give that a try. Now, the other thing that's been going on in the last 24 hours is we had a news release come out, a press release come out from a Wellington-based think tank called Dot Loves Data, talking about peak. Has peak petrol hit in New Zealand? Are we seeing the death of the petrol car, and is it electric vehicles that are taking over? Now, as in all these things, is lies, damn lies, and statistics, and they somewhat misrepresented where the market is at the moment. They kind of implied that EVs were overtaking the market entirely, and of course we all hope they are, and they are going at a really cool rate at the moment. But it's not quite that crystal clear, and what they've done is included hybrids, which some people will hate me for saying this, I think are a good thing for the market. I'm waiting for the dirty term words in the comments. So I went on News Talk ZB this morning and the AM show to discuss those things. Got really well received. I think there is actually some more positivity in those big media outlets about EVs these days, even if I have to go on there every time and deal with the usual questions about whether or not you're going to end up having to wait for charging this summer, or we don't have the infrastructure, or you can't go that far. I think these bigger media groups are starting to accept that these things are coming, and they're jumping on board. So don't forget to comment in the comments. Whether you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, we can see them all. We do our best to reply. The only thing I think we can't see is if you're watching on LinkedIn, you might not see our comments back, but YouTube and Facebook you do. And we will do our best to answer them. Hello, Trisha there. So now we have a guest for tonight, another Richard, which could cause some fun as we go through the night. David says PHEV are coming no matter what. That is true, I guess. Now, we have another Richard in the room. Now, Richard Bosselman is a very well-regarded and long-standing motoring journalist who currently is the president of the New Zealand Motoring Writers Guild, and we'll touch on why he's here a bit later. It's about New Zealand Car of the Year, of course. But to bring him to the room, thanks for joining us, Richard.
Hey, thanks, Richard. No, pleasure to be here.
From the buzzing metropolis of somewhere between Palmerston North and Fielding.
Yeah, exactly. Just overlooking Toyotaville. The reopened Toyotaville.
Ah, yes.
The brand new, refurbished.
Yes, for those who don't know, Twitter New Zealand, they had to move out for a while to get a bit of earthquake strengthening done. I guess a bit like the wheel holders on the BZ4X. They need a little bit of strengthening too, but we won't talk too much about that this time. But look, thank you for joining us, Richard. I'm not sure if you watched these before, but we'll run through the news first, and then we'll get to discussing the big topic of the night, which I think is Car of the Year. Let's go and dig through the branding thing on this display thing I have, and pull out the worst news sting in the market. Right, so the first bit of news, a little bit old now, but as we weren't here last week, and I think it's reasonably exciting for people, and I'm just going to pop some slides up here, because I'm a bit behind tonight. Where are we? People are used to me messing this up all the time, Richard, so you're all good.
Oh, right. Okay, good. No worries.
Tesla is reportedly inching closer to opening its second New Zealand showroom in the form of a new site in Naurunga Gorge, Wellington. Reports indicate that the site is set to be larger than the brand's sole showroom in Karangapi Road in Auckland, adding that it's scheduled to open in late 2023. The site will be built on 1 Malvern Road next to the Centennial Highway, part of State Highway 1. The 9,000 square metre site is set to feature a 3,500 square metre showroom. So that's what it looks like there. That's a pretty impressive dealership for a company that kind of indicates they don't have dealerships. Richard, any thoughts on this whole move where Tesla seems in New Zealand to kind of be bucking the trend a little bit by having these big landmark sites?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a heck of a lot bigger than the building they're in at the moment down Naurunga Gorge. I'm not quite sure where they're going to put it. The building they're in at the moment is so narrow that the Tesla logo barely fits on it. So,
yeah, I'm not sure if the one they have
this
they
is
have
a
at the moment
much bigger building.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the one they have at the moment is theirs or whether it's kind of a bit of a delivery centre through their delivery partners. But this certainly does put a stake in the ground, and it's interesting in that we're seeing a lot of car dealers actually move away from Wellington out to the Hutt Valley, and these guys, well, this isn't central Wellington, are certainly sticking close to the centre of town. Just people in the comments and viewers are interviewing Wellington that are Tesla owners and pretty excited to have a proper dealership and service centre down there. We'd love to see comments about that. I think it's interesting that we've had a lot of companies now come in and say, we can sell these things differently. We can use different models around electric vehicles. Polestar kind of hinted at that. Tesla hinted at that. We look at the BYD over in Australia, the mess that's going on over there. They were very much bullshit about not needing dealers, but ultimately they all kind of need dealerships in the end. I think it's kind of amusing that they all head in that direction. Here's another shot of it. That is a massive building.
Yeah, that's huge. There's not a lot of spare room for real estate down there, so they must be buying other buildings and knocking them down.
Well, I mean, this is kind of sort of greeny brownfields land up in the hills, quite high up. So, it's an impressive investment from Tesla. Now, the next bit of news is just we have a bit of a wave of electric vehicles coming in the next year or two. And if we just run through a couple of things we've gone through, we've spoken before here about the fact that Opel's arrived with a couple of electrified options. We have had in the last week announcements from Volvo with the EX90, the new electrified replacement version of the XC90 coming early 2024 to New Zealand. Audi's confirmed the Audi Q8 e-tron for New Zealand. Citroen has confirmed that they've got their first plug-in coming to market. And then I think in about 2 weeks' time, we have the Maxus MIFA 9, an electric people mover, landing in the market as well. Are there any else we've missed there? Anything else you're excited about seeing coming to market, Richard?
Yes, there's the big one that everybody seems to not be talking about in New Zealand, and that's the next generation Prius. That's been shown off in 2 days' time. That's got its world debut the day after tomorrow, and yet I don't think Toyota wants to talk about it at all in New Zealand.
Is it even going to come to New Zealand? I mean, they dropped.
Well, that's right, exactly.
One a while ago.
They're down to the strange little crossover one. The 7-seater, no, 5-seater, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not
like Prius V.
Yes, Prius V. That's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
Yeah, I mean, of those ones we talked about there, I mean, what's catching your eye? I think that EX90 is going to be a really interesting one in that prestige space. That's becoming such a hot property. That large electric SUV space.
Absolutely, and basically, given the level of autonomy it it has. That's quite exciting. Level 3. And also, but that's a 2024 car for here, I'm pretty sure. But
Yeah.
very exciting.
Volvo New Zealand's local agent saying that early 2024 for that. So
And
that's the Volvo.
price, obviously, everyone's speculating on price and looking at US market prices and UK market prices and all sorts, trying to work out how much it's going to cost here. I mean, where the current XC90 is, it's going to be a lot more than that car.
Yeah. There's the Audi Q8, which I just suspect will do well because you slap an Audi badge on a big SUV and it seems to shuffle out the door at a rate of knots.
It's a facelift of the e-tron, and they've just used the Q8. They've just merged the two badges, which is a great idea because Q8's a really strong badge.
Yeah. And then we have the Citroen plug-in hybrid. It's interesting. I was having a chat to someone today about Stellantis and the number of vehicles they've got coming in this space, and it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with the fact that so many of these cars are quite alike. They're very similar in technology. How do you compare them for pricing? Things like the minefield of how do you price the Fiat 500e against the Corsa or the Peugeot 208 when fundamentally they're the same car underneath. It's such a tricky thing, but I guess good that those brands are able to bring so many vehicles to New Zealand. The one I'm excited about is this. I'm not necessarily sure this is the face we're getting, but I think that whatever you think of Chinese cars, this one again is going to be a little bit of a groundbreaker in New Zealand in regards to certainly demand. A lot of people ask for those 7-seat electric vehicles, or I think you're actually going to get an 8-seat of this eventually.
Next year they're doing the 8-seater, I think.
But it's going to be really interesting to see how it's priced because I can't see that vehicle with the battery in it. I think it's a 90 or 100 kilowatt hour battery getting in under the $80,000 limit. Not sure if you've had any thoughts about where they might, what kind of label they stick on that, but
I don't know. The only thing I suspect we're going to see is not that frontage. I think we're going to see the LDV look, which is unfortunately the big Cascade grille. I like that Maxus look. I think that looks really good.
Yeah. Even on the electric.
But maybe something different
face
than
on the
I
electric. I don't. No. This is just a photo I grabbed at the last minute. Just people watching. What are your thoughts on the look of the MIFA and who wants a big butty electric people mover? I do.
Lots of people.
I love it. I love a good people mover. I love the little SUVs that we've got and we drive around in. But every time I end up with a big people mover or big SUV with 3 rows and stuff to drive around in, it's just so much easier for them to try.
Absolutely, electric offers a really good comeback time for people movers because flat floors. They're just brilliant for that.
Yeah,
you don't need to have a all-wheel drive attitude with the thing at all. You just need space, and these things give you lots of space.
Yeah. So that's going to be exciting. So that launches on, I think, the 23rd of this month. Though I know they launched in Australia, and they've only launched the petrol one initially. So an interesting split here. Australia, they launched petrol initially, and the electric's coming. In New Zealand, I think they've specifically said that they're launching the electric one here. So I'm not sure if we'll get the petrol. So we will see. Over in the comments, Tricia says, speaking of new models, I'm surprised the ID4 is coming in under $80,000. I am too. And one of the things I was speaking to an analyst the other day that they found it interesting was that's actually, I think, the 5th model up in the ID4 range. So they potentially didn't actually have to try that hard to get that price. And the question is, why are they not bringing in stuff that could be a little bit cheaper? But my theory on that is, and you may have some thoughts, Richard, that they're probably going to have such limited volume that they might as well go for a higher model that appeals to more customers, has a slightly better profit margin in it than necessarily going for something that's cut price, smaller battery. It's really going to come down to what.
In Skoda. They got a lever in Skoda. And probably Cooper as well, somewhere as well. Yeah. So. Yeah.
The Enyaq is. I mean, they've confirmed it's coming. They haven't given as many details of Volkswagen, but definitely. It's again, it goes back to that argument with Stellantis. When these electric cars seem to draw cars a little bit closer together in spec and platform and all these kind of things. How do these companies separate that? So Ross, talking back to the MIFA, says only a mother would love that. That's a bit of a mean comment there. I'm not ugly. I mean, I think you're talking about the LDV.
It's me, mate.
Yeah. And Brian says the Maxus looks okay with 8 seats. It should find plenty of buyers in this part of New Zealand. Which part of New Zealand are you talking, Brian? I can't tell where you're sitting, unfortunately, from this level. So that's just some of the stuff coming. It's been super exciting seeing the amount of options that are coming to New Zealand, and it's great to see. Now let's move on to something we have touched on before, and that is the mess in Australia around BYD. Now, the BYD operation in New Zealand seems to be ticking along pretty darn well. They seem to be getting cars out to the market, and that's been ticking over well. In Australia, not so much. They delivered a few cars, and then they had to freeze it. And they tried to gag some media about why, and they pushed customers out a little bit. People had already paid for their cars. It wasn't particularly great. They are now saying they're going to start deliveries again. BYD Atto 3 EV deliveries have resumed in Australia after being delayed about 4 weeks due to a technical compliance issue. An Australian design rule requiring a top-tier child seat attachment point for the middle rear seat has been fixed, says BYD Australia importer EV Direct in a customer notice. The rear centre seat will now be able to use for a child seat with a rear anchorage point available, while the ISOFIX child seat anchorages in the front passenger seat will be disengaged, meaning no child seat can be used in front in the front passenger seat of the vehicle, the notice explains. Now, my understanding is it actually goes further than that. They have actually had to take out or deactivate a airbag deactivation switch that was in the front seat. But my bigger concern goes back to the issue around what EV Direct has done over there. They have the system in Australia, and to a lesser extent similar to New Zealand, where you have standards to meet, and the company, as a recognised importer, basically self-certifies that they meet those standards. BYD Australia / EV Direct imported cars and delivered cars that were not compliant. And I would be surprised if they didn't know they weren't compliant. So that is really concerning to me. I mean, have you ever heard of anything like this before? I mean, I know we've had the issue with Honda where a couple of brands now where they've sold cars as 4-seaters because they realised they didn't have this set right. But this is, I wouldn't say the word fraud, but it's certainly misleading from EV Direct, isn't it, Richard?
Well, I wouldn't like to speculate, but you've got to be brave going into Australia and not meeting all the legislative requirements in that country. Their litigation, they're trigger happy in regard to litigation. So, just ask Toyota.
Yep. But anyway, good news that those things are still underway. Now, the moment I think if you are here for is I do have some notes that have come around a few things on BYD. Some we've been picked up from various places, some we have direct from BYD. Now, the first thing I want to quickly talk about is data. Now, if you are a BYD operator and you're in the comments, tell me if your data is still working in your car, because as some buyers have noted online, their data stopped working last week. I think mine stopped working on Saturday, and I have a bit of an explanation around that, or what I've been told is an explanation around that. So the cars were, so Terry, you've got no data, I'm not sure. Another one from Robert, no data. So what has happened is, and this is my understanding from information I've been given, you've essentially run out of the temporary data that was supplied with your vehicle. As many of you have worked out by now, it was an overseas SIM that was supplied in the vehicle. You might get some French advertisements on Spotify or something like that because of where they have where it's come from. Now, this was a holding pattern to get cars on the road, is my understanding. I think they, to be honest, I think they personally should have explained a little bit better. But they are now preparing to put new SIMs in the vehicles, and I believe that they will come in and I think they'll do that at service, or they'll do that earlier if you ask them to, and replace it with a local SIM. My understanding is the first local SIMs have gone into cars for testing today or in the last couple of days, and they will, so that system is ready to go. Now, what I have been told, what have been confirmed from BYD New Zealand, is that your 2 years of free data has not begun. That will not begin until you get the new SIM card in your car. So don't panic. Look, it's not ideal, obviously, but they will be giving you a new SIM, and your 2 years of data will start when that new SIM goes in the car. So it's a bit annoying for now. You can tether for now if you do need to use various things. I guess the only thing that really stops at the moment is Spotify, but that is coming. So let's just flick through these quotes here, the comments here, and see what the coverage is. Andy, his has stopped. Peter, his has stopped. Janice, yours has stopped. Manuel, it's not, since I picked up the car in late October. We haven't burned through it yet. Rob, no data. Trisha says quite rightly, the SIM card was an Orange branded one, so presumably it was on the European Orange network. Yep. No data for Ben either. Andy's saying thanks. And Terry, yes, you can hotspot off your phone through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Look, it's not ideal, and I stand by the thing. My point, BYD should have said more, but they're getting there. And hopefully we'll all have those new Sims soon, and you can continue listening to your Joe Rogan or whatever it is you listen to on Spotify as we go. So that's some mixed news, but I think ultimately some good stuff out of it. Now, we have a couple of other interesting little tidbits from BYD to show you. So this is the vehicle to load adapter. Now, someone jumped on the Australian and New Zealand BYD Facebook owners group the other day saying that the New Zealand, or that the vehicle load adapter had failed compliance, it wasn't coming, all this kind of stuff, and it simply wasn't true. BYD jumped on social pretty quickly and told you so. But we now actually have pictures of the adapter. Here it is. So I'm not sure if you guys can see that on the resolution on your screens, but it does say on it that it's splash proof. So it does have some weather resistance. My understanding of the situation is that the cars were supplied with units from China, which are being handed out with the cars in Australia, but they had no weatherproofing. They were basically a household plug board attached to a Type 2 cord. And New Zealand realised that obviously wasn't going to fly with WorkSafe, and so they've had these ones assembled, and they are to New Zealand safety standards. I think it's a pretty cool unit. I think this, Richard's probably the first one issued with more than one PowerPoint on it in New Zealand.
As far as I know, yeah. I've never seen one with more than one. Yeah, that's impressive.
I think it's pretty cool that they've put quite a bit of a lead on it too, because that means if you are camping or so forth, you can be a little bit away from the car. Or my thought too was it actually means you can pull it in through the window and use it inside the car. It's a cool thing. It's got an exterior on-off button. I think it's a good looking unit. I understand that they are on the ship on their way to New Zealand now, so they won't be too far away, though you can never tell with shipping these days, both for cars and for the devices that you add with them. So so that's something really exciting to look forward to. I suspect you should all have those by the time you go in for your first service, and be interesting to see what you do with them. I know there is a unit that has been given out to a few media to test so far, and people have charged e-scooters and cooked meals on them and so on and so forth. Do you think these vehicle to load adapters are becoming almost a must-have accessory with EVs? We've seen Hyundai and Kia have put them out. Do you think people are really keen to see this option to use the power and the battery a bit more, Richard?
No, I think people just like to say they've got one. It's a bit of a fad, isn't it? I mean, I guess, they'll all say, yeah, look what I've got. But it'll be interesting to see how often they really use it. I mean, I guess if you're running an electric bike and you need to charge it up again off your car, that's a good way of doing it. Sure. I can't think of many other practical applications with a BYD Atto that you'd use it for. If it was a serious off-road vehicle, then yeah, sure, you could see it being used a lot more. I guess people must have a cup of tea when they're driving off to the beach. It's great.
Yeah. What are you guys in the comments going to use your one for when it arrives? Let's run through the comments on this. Trisha, I have no idea how long the lead is. I guess you could kind of guess it's a few meters long from looking at that coil there, but I'm not sure I can really measure it with my eyes. Rob, can't wait to try it out. Oliver, could be very handy this summer. Ross, I'll have to think what two things I will use with mine. Terry, I have an electric pole saw and a long driveway to prune. Yeah, lifestyle block owners might find it handy for that reason. Clint says a 4-port board and a 6-port board. Trisha says hedge trimmer. And Paul O'Connor says, I don't see the point in the things. Fair enough, Paul. And Peter says leaf charging. Well, that's that's true. That's true. That's true.
That's actually a good idea. Yeah, a 40 kilowatt leaf.
And someone saying Robert was making us coffees off his at the Mangakino Lake Hop. Yeah, I guess you could take an espresso machine with you and use that. Brian says it will be handy for rescuing another EV. Give them a quick granny charge. I am actually very excited to get it at my house because I live in the middle of nowhere, but a rural community or a beachside community, and we get power cuts a lot. And because we're on tank water, the second the power goes out, we can't run the pump. And I've had a look, and I do believe that this is going to be able to run my pump, which means that I can still have water and probably internet when the power goes out. So that to me is pretty appealing. It's I think it has some uses. Terry says the EVSE has to not check the earth, but you can plug one in. Okay, that's probably something technical about charging another car. And Terry says the BYD one won't work on it. I'm guessing he means the BYD granny cable. Campbell says making pina coladas in my blender at the beach, then put on a hot heater because I'll be too wasted to drive. Okay. CJ says the odd power cut, and Clint says Ed powered Samoan flag by England. Not all these answers are great. Just to be clear, Richard, these answers are really
intriguing.
Lincoln says electric blanket. Clint says LEDs. Yeah, LED Samoan flag. Right. Okay. Mark says great coffees from that Ioniq 5. Yeah, because the Ioniq 5 has that too. Marcus says with me power cut backup. Brian says I understand that some cheap ass AliExpress EVSEs do not check for unearth. Well, there you go. That's handy information for all of us. Now, that is not all of our BYD tidbits for the night. There is more. Sorry, Richard, we will get to Car of the Year very soon, I promise you.
It's fine.
Now, we have been given some screenshots of the upcoming BYD app. This is the only place you guys are going to see them for now, so enjoy them. It looks a bit like the Tesla one. If we remember, you probably used the Tesla app, Richard. That looks a bit similar.
Looks a bit like the Mercedes one, actually.
Yeah,
a little bit.
That's probably true too. Yeah. So you've got obviously some functions there. You've got the ability to turn on the vehicle to run the AC and unlock the doors and windows. I'm not sure if I'm looking at it right, but it looks like the roof potentially could have some control as well. Tire pressure, though I'm not entirely sure why you need to see the tire pressure through the app when you're away from the car. So you will be able to remotely start the car and pre-charge it and pre-cool it, which is really cool. We haven't got any great exact details about what's going on, what the exact features are going to be, just the screenshots, but it's looking fairly comprehensive, at least more so than I was expecting to start. I was kind of expecting lock, unlock, and see how much battery you've got. But that looks a little more developed than I was expecting, and I think that's probably a good thing. So, that is what you will be getting in the next month or two on your phone, hopefully, if you do have a BYD. Again, Clint's with me. That looks way better than I thought it would. Terry, middle pick clearly shows the flying car mode. Trisha looks similar to the MG app. It's true. The iSmart one, yep. Andy, exciting stuff. Romeo, I'm looking forward to the app. And Mark says that car is very flat. Maybe they put too much weight on the tow bar, Mark. Yeah, who knows? So that is coming. There are a heck of a lot more BYDs, and I'll speak more broadly, Chinese electric vehicles arriving in the next month. Very, very soon. I had some kind of updated numbers through our sources today. There are landing at the moment in Auckland. If you wander down the port and have a look, there are, where's the numbers? I think about just short of 2,000, a few cars short of 2,000 Teslas landing in this shipment. There's just short of 1,000 BYDs landing, and 500 MGs, though not all those are electric. And similarly, there are some LDVs, electric LDVs, arriving on the wharf at the moment as well. So a lot of EVs landing at the moment. Sure, it goes up and down depending on what ship is coming in, but so many more arriving. We'll just cover off the last couple of comments and then we'll go to the next item. CJ says, is that the drone setting? It's the tyre pressure, guys. It's the tyre pressure. Does it change colour in accordance to your car colour? Interesting question. I don't know yet. And 0 kPa because it's flying. It's the tyre pressure, people. Can't all be comedians. Right. Now, let's move on to the reason you are here tolerating these guys, Richard, and that is the New Zealand Car of the Year. Now, a bit of context to people. I have had a bit of history with the New Zealand Car of the Year myself. Richard was actually the person who's stepped in after me as the president of the New Zealand Motoring Riders Guild. So while we're going to discuss it with him in the current role, I do know a little bit about it. So we'll try not to make it too much of a in-house discussion and hopefully give everyone a bit of insight about what is actually going on. But they have announced the top 10. Well, it's 12. Traditionally a top 10. This year it's a top 12. Too much awesomeness out there for the New Zealand Car of the Year. And there are a lot of electric vehicles. So if I put up this wonderful graphic that includes a few photos that appeared in EVs and Beyond magazine, the finalists, the electric finalists are the BMW iX, the BYD Atto 3, the Kia EV6, the Mercedes-Benz AMG EQS 53, the Polestar 2, and the Tesla Model Y. And then we have plug-in hybrids in the vehicles with plug-in hybrid options, I should say, in the Mitsubishi Outlander, the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, and the Lexus NX. There are three other vehicles in that top 12.
Yep.
The Ford Everest, the Hyundai i20N, and the Kia Sportage. And I feel like we're not sure if has happened or not yet. Is there a plug-in hybrid version of the Sportage yet? I'm trying to think.
It hasn't turned up yet.
It
hasn't turned up yet.
Yeah.
We checked.
Yeah. So, look, Richard, to start off with, can you just tell us a little bit about the New Zealand Car of the Year, a little bit of its history and how we've come to this list of 12 vehicles?
So the history of New Zealand Car of the Year is illustrious and long-standing. It started in 1988. It was the first one that was handed out, and we've done it annually ever since. So you can count up how many that is. And basically, it's always run on the same sort of guidelines. There's quite a bit of consideration of cars in a very broad remit, but much more than just price and everything else like that. We look at the criteria, if you want me to go through them, is how a vehicle performs in its intended role, the styling, obviously the interior design and the accommodation of a vehicle, fit and finish and quality, the dynamic sides, ride and refinement performance, the road holding and handling. Then you go into things like value for money and the active and passive safety, and also environmental responsibility. So there's a lot to think about.
That last one probably favours the EVs a little bit as well.
Well, yes and no. I mean, yes, it does when an EV is on the road and in ownership, but not so much when an EV has been built, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, always the balance there.
yes, there
And
is.
look, this isn't the first year that electric vehicles have been in the car of the year. They've had quite a bit of an impact over the last few
Yes, they
years, you
have.
could
Yeah,
say.
that's right. Yeah, yep. If they want to have a look at the New Zealand Motoring Writers Guild website, they can see all the previous winners. But since 2015, the first electrified car that was awarded was BMW i3, and that was in its range extender format. So it was an electric car. That motor doesn't run the wheels directly. And since then, it's gone to Jaguar I-Pace in 2019, EQC in 2020, the Mercedes, and then this year we went again. So it'll be really interesting. The current car, of course, is the Ioniq 5. So yeah, I mean, we recognise electric has obviously made a huge impact on the market. We're forward-thinking people, and it's the future.
Mm-hmm. Is it hard for a non-electric car to win the award these days? I mean,
No, I don't
there's a lot
believe
to like about
so.
electric
It's
vehicles.
certainly, if you've, for instance, and I'm just plucking it out as an example, I'm certainly not favouring it any more than any of the others. So if you drive something like an i20N, you get pretty excited by that car. The engineering and the technology of that car is pretty phenomenal. I mean, it's very much a mirror of what Hyundai do with their WRC car as best they can for the road. Um, and again, Everest. I've driven Everest in Australia already. I mean, that impressed me as quite a big leap forward over the previous one. I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. The one thing about New Zealand Car of the Year, as you know, is that you've got to be pretty brave to pick in advance what you think is going to win it. Because I've tried in past years and never quite. I don't think I've ever got it right.
I
I've.
Yeah, having seen the inside of it for the last
Yep,
3 or 4 years
exactly.
as secretary and then president,
Yep.
I don't think I picked any at all in any of those years, and it was such an interesting thing to see the way things added up, and when you break things down and separate them out into their various categories of items.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, we could be accused of being a little bit eclectic over the years. In fact, I mean, and certainly we don't just favour expensive cars. There's if you look at the background to the award, you'll see that it's gone to everything from, I mean, in 1993 it went to a Citroen ZX. It's been to a Toyota Corona. It's been to Mazda 2 and Mazda 3. It's been to Focus and Fiesta. MX-5's won it twice, in its different generations. The Ford Mondeo's won it.
Mm.
On the other hand, so is Lexus LS. When that car first came out, the LS 400, the original in 1991. And I think Commodore's won it. We tend to Cayman's won it. Porsche. That's probably one of the more high-end winners. And I guess EQC again is a slightly more expensive example. I mean, when you look at the technologies of all these cars, and especially in the past year, it's been pretty phenomenal. You could obviously say that if you look, a $310,000 car like a Mercedes AMG EQS 53, well, it's going to be good because you're paying $310,000 for it. On the other hand, if you compare that car to any other car in that very elite sector at the moment, it's just absolutely mind-blowing some of the technology in that car. It's technology we've never seen before on the road,
Mm-hmm.
and so you've got to consider these things.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, you get the odd person that'll run around. I'm surprised there hasn't been in the comments now saying that, all media is bought by the advertisers that are in it and so forth. Can you talk to the independence of the Guild Awarding? Just explain
Oh,
how it's
totally.
different from others.
Well, there's just no commercial influence at all. Simple as that. We just we just we just are all independent writers. We should all. I'd like to think that every member of the guild is writing with a thought to the consumer first and foremost. Certainly, that's my impetus for writing, and it's all without fear or favour. We're it's the old journalist credo, and we take that very seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the car companies basically pay for no part of the process other than supplying the vehicles to the
Yes,
journalists
absolutely.
for the basis of testing.
Yeah, we asked them to provide the cars. We've got 20 judges this year, and we have a percentage that we need to ask to meet a minimum count of judges to make sure that we get a fair and accurate response. And that means that 14 or more of those people have to have driven those cars. In many cases, those cars have been some of those cars have been circulating for months anyway, and quite a few of us have driven them already. We don't ask for them back again. We just base our judgments on the time we spent with them for road test, and a road test is conducted over 5 to 7 days, and it's well, you've done it yourself. It can be pretty comprehensive. You end up with a notebook full of facts and figures, and hope like heck you don't lose it when you go looking for it 11 months down the road.
Yeah, it's not some pressure situation where you take the cars out for 10 cars out for a day and drive a few laps around a track and a set course. It's
I've been involved in those
doing
before.
The shopping and
they're too hard. Yeah. So I mean, we don't speak to the other awards that are out there. We're the New Zealand Car of the Year. We've held that title since 1988. Everyone's aware that it's now attached with another award conducted by some other organisations. We can't do anything about that, unfortunately. We just have to wear that. But ours is the New Zealand Car of the Year, and we're proud to have it.
We're just going to ask a couple of questions from the crowd here. When is it announced?
Okay, so we're announcing that in early February. We wanted to give it, as we did for the previous year. COVID obviously held up some releases of product in this country, so we wanted to give them a full calendar year. And then a little bit on the sides.
And how was it announced? I mean, what's the process?
Well, we're once again, because a previous president of the guild, looking remarkably like you, Richard, did a fantastic job in arranging in association with Television New Zealand 7 Sharp. So, well, ride on your coattails, and that's how we'll do it again.
So
you got the door open there. Well, look, but you did a lot of hard work there, and we have to acknowledge that.
Trisha asks, who are the 20 judges?
Right. Okay. Well,
we don't necessarily need the names. We could give the names.
I'm a little
more
bit,
around.
I'm a little bit,
I guess the
I'm
nature of the
worried
beast.
by that. Yeah. What are you going to say? I would like to think they're going to be stalked. So the 20 judges are journalists from throughout the country. Some of them are involved in print. Some of them, like me, are involved predominantly now in online. One of them has some radio experience. But basically, we have a judge, and we span the whole country from Northland down to Otago.
Trisha's just kind of added in there February 2020.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Let's run through the EV finalists. It is. We don't want to dismiss the other cars. Let's be clear, but this is an EV live stream, so we did mention them, but we'll focus on that. The BMW iX. That's a really interesting vehicle. I drove the M60 version of that last week. It's a little bit genre busting, isn't it? I mean, it's a sort of an SUV, sort of a wagon, sort of. Yeah, it's an interesting one, but phenomenal performance, amazing technology. I mean, the fact they've taken that concept from the original i3 and continued that composite construction, that's such a cool vehicle. The Tesla Model Y, that's obviously just an absolute phenomenal sales success. A lot aligned with the Model 3, which of course I think was in for the running last year or the year before? I'm trying to think. Year before.
2 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah. The Polestar 2, obviously that was launched late last year and has made a few waves around the place. That's I've got to stop calling it a Chinese Volvo.
All Volvos, except for one, come from China now anyway, so it's not entirely...
Yeah. The BYD 803, which obviously we've talked about a lot tonight. The Kia EV6, which I'm driving at the moment, that is a phenomenal car. Obviously closely related to the Hyundai Ioniq 5, but I am just amazed at how much separation they've managed to get out of those two cars while sharing certain elements. And that Mercedes AMG EQS 53, I've driven that. It is crazy. That is a very cool car. It is very expensive, but I'm kind of interested with that car to see coming through overseas. I'm trying to recall if we're going to see some of them here. Some of the more such a hard term to use, entry-level models based off that technology and off that platform. The context to that, people, is that when the BMW the Mercedes-Benz EQC won the award, I got hauled over the coals by some people on social media for suggesting that it, I can't remember whether the term was affordable or value or something along those lines.
Right.
What I meant was that it was it wasn't that much more expensive than the performance options of the same vehicle, but in petrol form, basically. So I'm so careful. You got to be so careful in that job about how you talk about value and that kind of thing around.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the one thing that is worth always bearing in mind with Mercedes is they are inevitably one of the brand that leads with technology. They generally are the bravest in introducing new technology, and that technology always filters through to the mainstream. Look at ABS. It's just one example on air.
Yeah.
They started the ABS trend. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, running through the others here. I mean, let's not forget the Mitsubishi Outlander. I mean, the Mitsubishi Outlander has probably introduced New Zealanders to vehicles with a plug pretty much more than any other model, except maybe the Nissan Leaf. That has just been such an impactful model on the market. And the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, the plug-in hybrid model from that is, I would say it's more of a plug-in hybrid plus, and that it does over 100 kilometres in electric mode, which is, again, just showing that's some pretty cool technology doing that. Look, has anyone got any last questions for Richard before we let him get back to his evening? Tricia has a comment here. The Atto 3 would score the most points in the value for money criteria for sure. Well, yes and no. I guess it depends. I mean, if you're a performance purist, you could argue the Hyundai i20N offers a lot of value or a lot of performance for the money by the same token. Or that, the Tesla Model 3 for its price offers a lot of technology as well. That's not necessarily an easy calculation to make, I would have thought, Richard.
And anyway, it's just one of a number of criteria. Value is always a tricky one to think about. This is what I mean. As you know, when you're deciding this and when you're actually putting pen to paper to actually set out your scores, it's not a matter of a moment. It can take days, if not. Sometimes it takes weeks to work out exactly just where you're heading with this, and then you can surprise yourself with your results.
It takes me all year because I actually start noting and scoring cars as I just something I advised members to do a while back. It does help to I score pretty much everything and then see how I go.
Absolutely,
it helps when you're on the panel doing the top 10 as well. Terry says, and this is a really good point that we need to make clear because we had a lot of comments about this previous years.
So these have to be cars that are released brand new in the calendar year. So Model 3 obviously doesn't count because Model 3 is not a new release for this year. Model Y is the new release for this year. Yeah.
And Terry, the Model... the Model 3 got a run at the award 2 years ago. It was in the 2020 running of the event. And it was not successful that year, but it was given a fair run by everyone. And Yeah, it was. I actually think it was quite impressive with Tesla that, and I think a good nod to the gravitas of the award that Tesla doesn't necessarily globally engage with media on a significant level, but they
No.
have in that year and in this year put real effort into getting the vehicle around New Zealand journalists to be considered for the award.
Yeah. And we've certainly put effort into ensuring that they will, because we don't want to have a situation where a car doesn't get to enough judges for it to be voted. We don't want to have wasted votes, so we put a lot of effort into that, and we're satisfied that the 12 cars that will be judged, will going in for judging, will all be judged fairly.
Yeah, exactly. Romeo says, I bought the 803 as it was value for money, and even at the low new price, it still is at a similarly priced to an ICE vehicle, which does not have the same features of that of the 803. It's good that you're happy with your purchase, Romeo. Terry says, Model 3 isn't really following a model life year trajectory, more a continuous improvement model. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that, Terry, and you've got to look at comparison to other vehicles out there. So the Mitsubishi Outlander, the previous model, was around for over a decade, and it was continuously updated through its life as well. I would suggest there'll be a new Model 3 before 10 years is up. In fact, probably less than 10 years. So it's not particularly special in that respect. Tricia says, Richard, where can one see or drive a Mercedes AMG 1?
A Mercedes AMG 1. Well, they haven't actually put that into build yet. There's only just there's several of them. I know there's the one that's just set the lap record of the Nürburgring. Probably I'd say at the Giltrap in time. Probably at the Giltrap franchise, but. Do they bring it around the world? Well, I think that's a capped car too, isn't it? That's 500 units, I think, that car, from memory. I'm sure they will. I'm sure somebody will buy one.
I think I saw today that it was going to basically be Europe and maybe the Middle East only.
There's some countries where they can't sell it. They can't sell it in the States, for instance.
Yeah. Part of that being that it has well, I think you get to drive your Mercedes AMG 1 away from the dealership. You don't you basically have a trail of paid mechanics following you because it is a Formula One drivetrain.
It certainly is.
I believe one of the stories I read was finicky, but I think that's someone taking a leap that's beyond that. I'm sure it is detuned to be at least some way reliable, but that is a very, very cool car. Element of electrification to it. I'm not sure. Perhaps a holiday to Europe might be the best way to do that, Tricia. And Stuttgart, I guess. no.
But certainly you can. But certainly you can see EQS AMG 53s here. There's been quite a number of those being bought in. Yeah,
you can, and I've driven it. Very cool car, and again, we've got more cars coming off that Mercedes line of technology that are going to be so cool. So look, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Richard, for coming and joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
New Zealand Car of the Year, good luck to all the vehicles involved. I'm sure there's some people here who have their favourites picked out already, and Terry seems to want the Tesla Model 3
Sounds
to win.
like it. I thought he said Model T, because that was exactly the same thinking that occurred with the Ford Model T during its year. It was always continuous improvement. They changed it every year, but it was still the same car. Yeah.
Yes, but that's kind of every car, isn't it? Every car gets a model life tweak each year to keep it selling. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Who knows? I don't think. I don't think Tesla's that special in that perspective. Well, they're. Who knows? Anyway, look, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for joining us. Great to see the numbers here tonight. Exciting that maybe next month there'll be another 700 or 800 odd BYD owners and Tesla owners turning up to watch along and comment. Don't forget, hang around the EVs and Beyond Facebook page to see more content from us. Also, jump over to the EVs and on YouTube. EVs and Beyond YouTube channel and go and check out that EQB review video. It is really good. We have one coming out in the next couple of days, third video on the BYD 803 from our long-term run with that. And we'll see you around. Thanks to Richard Bosselman. Tricia says, thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Tricia.
Yeah, no worries at all. We'll see everyone next week.